Humble in Egypt. And if you see the title, it says, My Life Used to Be Boring Until. Now, before we get started, be sure that you subscribe, like, share. But I'm here with another group, my partnership with Urban Intellectuals, Freddie Taylor and the crew. We have partners with them to curate these travel experiences. You can check them out at urbanintellectuals.com. Be sure to pick up the Black History flashcards and the whole nine. We are committed to educating, and you'll be able to see a whole lot from Freddie and Urban Intellectuals and Sankofa Club. And we partner with Maximum Impact as we bridge the gap between Africa and the African diaspora. So really good opportunity. So we're here with another group with them. And so my life used to be boring because I was doing the day-to-day routine, doing the same old, same old. Man, you know, I tell people, I said there's one regret that I had is the fact that I wasted so much time in the rat race. And, you know, granted, you know, when you're raising, well, they're over there having a good time. When you're raising a family, obviously you have to prioritize your time and do different things. But even in the midst of that, I still could have found time to do other things. But because of the culture I was in, the culture was really discouraging. Going out, the language of the culture that I was around was, you know, kind of boxed in and not really a culture that was supportive of travel, but even international travel. And obviously, depending on the circles that you're in, that can play a part in the, you know, just in general in life. And so because of that, that kept me in a particular mental box. I don't want to talk too loud because he's doing a presentation, so I'll come over here. I don't want to disrupt what he's doing. But I used to really be hesitant about international travel, afraid of international travel. Saw international travel as something that those people did. We didn't do that. We pretty much stayed on the plantation scared of everything. And that was cool. That's how we did it. You know, work like a daggone slave and then get up and do it all over. Work. Just do the routine. Work, go to Bible study, go to church, do a little something on the weekends, and then do the same routine. And I did that thing for daggone like 25 years of my life. And when I finally woke up, and I think it was right around 45, I woke up and I said, now, this can't be all that there is to life. I mean, this can't be it. I'm just sitting up here working and doing all of this, that, and the third. And I was afraid to fly. I was afraid to get on airplanes because I didn't know. You know, I was just afraid of everything. And that's pretty much what the culture supported. Don't go anywhere, don't do anything, they're gonna get you over there. This sort of a bad rap and all of that. And so right around 44, 45, right around there, I said, I gotta do something different right after life camp. And that particular life camp was grueling. You know, 11 hours a day, 5 days a week, 8 weeks out of a summer, 125, 150 children. It's grueling. And so I said, let me go to Bermuda. And I was afraid to fly, so they had a cruise ship that left out of Baltimore. And so I went up there and I said, you know what, this is 2016, so I said, all right, I'm gonna go to Bermuda. So I went to Bermuda on the cruise ship. And that was, you know, sometimes you gotta take baby steps with this thing. So I did that. All right, cool. That was, and I've been down to the islands and stuff like that. And I've been on a plane before, but I just wasn't trying to be a jet setter. That wasn't my thing. So from there, 2017 rolled around. 2016, 17 is when I did my whole Uber experiment. I was getting ready for life camp again, and dude said that his brother made $19,000 one month driving Uber. So I'm like, well, shoot, $19,000 a month. Let's round that up to 20. That's $240 a year. This might be a game changer, you know. So let me try. So I hopped out there, and you know, just kind of funny how life works. I'm thinking I'm going out there to do an Uber experiment. Never hit $19,000 a month, but what I did do, I figured out how to get to $10,000, $12,000 a month. pretty easily. So, but while I was doing that, I got to meet so many people. And this is how I ended up doing what I'm doing today. I'm just kind of putting it all in talking about boring life and all of that. And so I started meeting all these people from all over the world because I pick them up from the airport and I'm talking. And they're like, man, you need to have a podcast. Man, you need to have a show. They didn't know I was previously a radio announcer and all of that. So I was like, yeah, that's cool. And this before I even had the YouTube channel and all this stuff happening. And, so I'm driving around, meeting all the people. It wasn't even about the money anymore. It was just about all the people I was meeting. So I started meeting people from Africa, Zimbabwe, South Africa. And then one day, I picked up this lady in Alexandria, and she started talking about Ethiopia. And when she started talking about Ethiopia, all I thought about Ethiopia was the little babies with the flies and the distended stomachs, and just no place I'd want to go visit for vacation. Maybe visit, to help the poor people because they need us Americans to come save them from themselves and all of that thinking that I've been indoctrinated with. So, her name is Hanny. And she just started telling me about Ethiopia, how beautiful it was. And this was 2016. This was like October-ish, November-ish 2016. And I was just kind of put a mental check. I said, one day I'm going to get to Ethiopia. So 2016 goes through. I've wrapped up the whole Uber experiment. I just got to a point where I was like, okay, now I'm not going to hit this $20,000 a month. I got other things I need to be doing. And so that's when 2017 rolls around, and I start to think about, and right around 2017 is when that 45 started creeping up on me. And I don't know, something about that number 45 that makes you start thinking, because you're not quite 50, and you're like, I don't know about this thing. Well, I've been working and everything, and it seems like I'm playing good times with this, and I mean, I've done well, don't get me wrong, but it's like, after a while, the money doesn't even drive you, because you realize that your expiration date, as those numbers come around, that expiration date is coming, and then some people don't even make it to a certain point in life, and they're expiring, and then you're like, what did I do with my life? And this is what I'm gonna really be helping people walk through when I do this whole Reboot Your Life retreat. So I had to make some decisions, and they were critical decisions right around 45. And I said, you know what, I'm 45 years old, and I've never been to the continent of Africa, and why have I never been to Africa? I've had opportunities to go. I would always send people, send money, send book bags, send stuff to Haiti, I'm of that mentality, but I never had the courage to go for myself. So I determined, I said, when I turn 45, I said, by the time I it was 45, I'm getting my years together. And I said, I'm gonna go to Africa. And so 2018 rolls around, I'm 45, rolling up on my 46th birthday. I said, okay, I'm going. So made the plans, scared as 3 Hades, all right, scared to go to Africa. I'm looking at Google Earth. I'm like, I don't know where I'm gonna go, how I'm gonna find somebody. And everything I saw that they presented, made it look like I was gonna go to one of them places, So everything I looked at, I was like, oh man. So I went on Google Earth and I said, I need to see some huts or something. I need to see some naked people in the streets. And this is how ignorant. This is 2018 now. This is 2022. And I looked down and I saw the swimming pools and I felt ashamed. And I must have scanned over East Legon in Accra, Ghana. And I'll be honest, I did not want to go to South Africa first because I didn't want to go to some place that was nearly identical to what I was familiar with. I wanted to go someplace different. And now don't get me wrong, I love South Africa. South Africa is actually one of my favorite places on the continent, but I'm able to contextualize it and put it in perspective and understand, why I didn't at that time. So I said, and I didn't want to go to the most rural area because I just knew I was a green, westernized, colonized, Black American, spoiled, all that. I knew that about myself, and I knew that I didn't need to go to the most remote places for me. So Accra, Ghana came up, I looked down, I said, oh man, I felt some kind of way, and then I went down to the street level, I saw the houses. I said, wait a minute. So I was afraid. I pulled the trigger, booked my flight, put a post on Facebook. I said, hey, does anybody know anybody who knows a tour guide in Ghana? I'm going to Ghana. And so Facebook community came through, connected me with a tour guide in Ghana. Now, I knew enough about myself to say I'm going to handle my accommodations. So I was looking for familiar places to stay and all of that. I handled it, got on that plane. I was so excited. I was nervous, but I was excited. But I knew that if I didn't take charge of that moment in my life, then I would be stuck. I knew I had to take charge of that moment in my life. I knew nobody else was going to do it for me. Even though I was afraid, I had to still do it afraid. So the fear wasn't going anywhere. I couldn't control the fear, but I could control my response to the fear. And my response was to still press forward, even though I was afraid of the unknown. And it was really, I didn't know what I was afraid of. I just didn't know, you know. So I said, but I'm gonna go. Didn't have a whole lot of support going and all of that, but, because the culture I'm in, I had to recognize, I had to cut people slack. I mean, we've been all told the same backwards things about the continent of Africa. I was so green about Africa. I knew there were different countries in Africa, but I thought everybody pretty much rolled the same way, thought the same way. People will say, well, African spirituality, like it's all one thing. It's like, well, which African spirituality are you talking about? Are you talking about East African, West African, South African? So I get on the plane, I'm excited, I'm flying over, I get on South African Airways, never been on a 10-hour flight before, so I'm nervous about getting on this long flight. I'm thinking, oh man, I'm gonna be on a plane for 10 hours. I'm gonna die. That's gonna kill me. But I had to keep on pushing through, y'all. I had to keep on pushing through. And there's a point in what I'm gonna be sharing with you, because if I never got on that plane, I would not be doing what I'm doing right now. I would not be talking to you right now about what I'm talking to you about. I would not be standing here in Colombo in Egypt. I would not have been to 17 different countries had I not gotten on that plane for the first time. I didn't know what was on the other side of getting on the plane. I just knew I could not keep living that same life I was living day after day after day after day after week, month, year after year, doing the same thing. I just didn't want my life to go out like that. And I had to be intentional. I had to be proactive. I couldn't overthink how much it was going to cost, because I knew it was going to cost me more to still keep doing what I was doing instead of getting up and doing what was in my heart to do. So I got on the plane, didn't know what was on the other side. The plane ride was long. I watched like 4 movies, but it wasn't unbearable. I was able to do it. I did it. So we come in, and I remember when it was time to land, and I looked out the window and I saw the red soil in Ghana, and I said, wow. I said, look at this. I said, I made it. And what many of us in the African diaspora have to push through is just the stuff that we hear. We get it from the white supremacy in America. We get it from the black folks in America. Like, you get it from all sides. Now, this isn't everybody, because some people grew up in cultures that encouraged it, They grew up in environments where people were like, yeah, go, And I didn't want to come on a mission trip. I didn't want to come with the mindset of I'm coming to help improve somebody. I wanted to come with the mindset of I'm here to learn and understand a piece of my heritage. It's not all of it, just a piece of it. Let me come get a little bit of understanding. So I landed. The tour guides were there waiting for me. They were very nice. They were very. It was everything that I'd hoped for at this point. So I'm riding around, and when I got in the car and we started riding, I instantly felt so ashamed. I felt so ashamed because I'd allowed somebody to think for me for all of my life, and I was so ashamed. And when I say that meaning, it was like, hey, what's going on, Shade? I was like, what? It's hard to put into words, because when people had told me, here's the realization. I realized I had been listening to ignorant people, which in turn made me ignorant, which in turn had me saying ignorant things. And that's sometimes embarrassing when you come to that realization. And I never felt any fear. I never felt uncomfortable. I never felt like anybody was going to jump out and get me. I could see the cultural differences. I could see, but it didn't mean the cultural differences were bad. It was just different. You know, what made me, and then I had to start analyzing myself. What made me think that my way of life was better? Where did that thinking come from? That what I do, you know, what made me think I was blessed and privileged above these people? So it caused me to start asking deeper questions. To say, well, okay, with the challenges that I see, where do these challenges come from? And this thing unlocked a Pandora's box, if you will, that led me down a road of discovery that I believe every person, whether you're a part of the African diaspora or wherever, should really investigate, because you begin to understand, hey, what's going on, Cicely? You begin to understand how misinformed we are, how the misinformation is disseminated, how the disinformation is disseminated, and how we have to be intentional about changing it. And that is exactly what happened. I said, there's no way I will let people think for me again. And I knew at that point when I went to Ghana and I was riding around and meeting the people, everyone was so nice. So everyone was talking about, you know, oh man, you know, they don't like us over there, and they don't want us over there, and they don't see us like this, that, and the other. And so I'm thinking to myself, I said, but that's not what everybody was so cordial, so kind, so humble. But I lived my whole life listening to somebody say, they don't like you over there. They don't. And I'm like, and you're talking to somebody and they're saying, you know, Aquaba, you know, I'm just using you was in Ghana as an example. But when I go to the East and they say caribou, and you're welcome, and please, thank you. And I'm saying, but now, these people aren't supposed to like me. These people are supposed to be like hating on me, but I'm not having that experience. Then I started learning about the history and what actually occurred and what is still occurring. And and then I'd ask myself, why would I gravitate towards, without a thought, I gravitate towards going to Europe. My dream was to go to, you know, wherever, just name any European city, Lisbon, Paris. But for whatever reason, when it came to any part of Africa, there was a hesitation. There was some sort of negative thought. And I said, this is how I've been trained my whole life. And I said, it's going to be up to me to dismantle it. And that's when it began, November 2018. This is November 2022. It's been 4 years, 17 countries, been to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, a children's book series, already led hundreds of people to the continent, on tap to lead thousands to the continent, because of realizing that I had a responsibility at that point. And the responsibility was not just on one side, it was a responsibility on both sides. It was a responsibility for me, obviously for my brothers and sisters in the US and the UK and Canada, those of us who are part of the African diaspora. But then at the same time, I have a responsibility to my brothers and sisters in this part of the world, because they've been just as misinformed about us as we have been about them. They think that we're just a bunch of gangbangers and thieves and drug addicts and mad people and all this other kind of stuff, but they don't understand that if you collectively take the so-called African American and put us all together in one country, we would be the 13th, 14th wealthiest country in the world. There are 160 some odd countries in the world, 190 some odd countries in the world, and if you put us all together economically with our GDP, we would be among the wealthiest countries in the world. But yet the narrative that they pump in these satellite dishes all over the world is that we're somehow, you know, messed up or somehow, you know, confused or everybody is that way. You understand? The whole batch. You know, of course we have some that are like that, but that's in any culture. You're gonna find it where people are messed up and confused and all those different things. But then you have another segment of the population that's brilliant, that goes out here and creates and does just like what our ancestors did on this continent. So then, as I'm traveling around the different places, you know, I'm in Ghana. So then I'm like, well, okay, cool. What's my next country? So Tanzania was my next country. That's when I went to climb Kilimanjaro. From there, what was my next country after Tanzania? I think Cote d'Ivoire. And then I just went on this real mission to go out and see as much as possible and learn about the different cultures. And so understanding there's a tremendous difference between the Maasai and the Zulu and the Mende and the Berbers. You know, so when we talk about Africa, we can't talk about Africa in one sense or monolithically. We have to be able to talk about it through its diversity. And I'm saying this is what it is. And so so in 2019, just kind of rewind a little bit, I brought my first tour. We had 35 people come and created a Ghana Chronicles video. And I was just determined. I was like, I don't care. I didn't care what people had to say. I didn't care. Yeah, I didn't care what people had to say. It was like, you know, like when ignorant people speak, it's like, I'm not going to sit here and, you know, cave to that. If anything, I'm going to say, well, have you been? No, you ain't been. All you doing is looking at TV. All you doing is looking at the satellite dish. So, or that's the other thing. My favorite saying is leave America in America, because I would hear some people who would come over to the continent and they would complain and complain and complain. And I'm saying, why, you know, if you're coming over here, just leave America in America. You complain about America. You complain about how bad America is, how racist America is, how this, that, and the other America is. Then you come to Africa, you complain about wherever you go in Africa. You just complaining. You just need your own planet somewhere. Just go to your own planet and be there by yourself and complain about whatever's going on there. You know, I would hear that. And I'd have to step to that, because that's part of the conditioning. When you've been groomed to be entitled and spoiled and always comfortable and never uncomfortable and everything goes your way, then that's the attitude you come with. But here's the good part about it. I've met so many people who've been willing to adjust themselves because they understand what I'm saying. They understand, one, what I'm saying is coming from a place of love. So it's like, look, I don't, like I'm here now in Colombo, and I'm talking to my brother Jerry. And I talked about it in the video, The Ghana Chronicles, how I didn't see any black men where I was at. You know, when I went to Ghana, I didn't see any brothers from America in Ghana. And so when I had my Travel Noir article, some sister wanted to come and say, and it always got to be one of us that got something smart to say, but that's a whole other story. She was like, well, you know, you need to travel more. You need to go this other, because they down in this other place. And I'm saying, where I went, I didn't see any. And because of that, I feel as though I have a responsibility to create a bridge for those who want to come to be able to do it. Little did I realize in that moment how my whole life was going to change. That's what I'm saying. Little did I realize. Never did I plan on leading towards to Africa. Never, not one time did I think that I would ever be doing this. But when I tell you that this is the most rewarding and the most fulfilling thing that I have ever done in my life, I think that's an understatement, because I watch people transform. I watch the foolishness, and I'm not talking about something they make up in a room with somebody speaking and they make up something on their own. I just watch people come and put the pieces together to see how the same things that's happening in America is the same thing that's happening on the continent of Africa, how the same players are still impacting and affecting and playing games and manipulating and doing all the same stuff that we deal with in America. People are dealing with it. And I'm gonna flip the camera around right now, because there's a group that's with me right now. These people right here, they're having their moment. And we're in Egypt. And granted, you know, Egypt is a very diverse culture also, because some people think, well, you know, Egyptians don't think that they're African. Well, which Egyptians are you talking about? You know, you got different kinds. It's not one kind of Egyptian, you know? So it's things like that that you begin to learn. And then when you understand the history of Egypt, you see how there's a recurring theme here in Egypt. same players, the British, the French. You have the Arab aspect here. Then you have Greco-Roman influence. You have all of that going on. And so you understand something happened here. And so when you understand that something happened here, it's not just, oh, them Egyptians this, them Egyptians that. It's like, well, you know, have you seen the people in Aswan and how they look different from those in Cairo? Do you understand that part? How did that happen? You know, where did this history, how did it all play out? You see French architecture, you see British architecture, you see Arabic architecture. Then I go over to Ethiopia and see what I saw in Ethiopia shocked me. Shocked me to the point where I was like, well, whoa, what's up? So, you know, for those who know me, you know I've spent a lot of time, the greater part of my adult life, in the whole church world, that whole deal. And so I'm looking for answers. And I'll tell you this much, I don't care what you believe or what you into, if you stop asking questions, that's when you dumb yourself down. If you get to the point where somebody tells you don't ask questions about what you're doing, you are now dumbing yourself down. And so I started asking questions. I was like, well, this isn't making sense. You know, I go over to West Africa and East Africa, and I see all this white Jesus everywhere. And I expected in America, because, you know, that's a predominantly white country. But then I come over here and I see it. I said, something's going on. So I said, let me go to Ethiopia and let me see some of the real. Let me go to Lalibela and, you know, see, I need to see some of that ancient Coptic thing. I need to see some Coptic stuff. Now I rolled up in there. And I saw that same foolishness on them walls, and not the original, but the imposter version. And I said, oh, I have to educate myself even more and let me understand the role of this, because now it's getting deeper, and I'll share more. I'm not gonna get too deep today. I have an interview that I did with Leslie Jones that's gonna come out and talk about how I broke free from a lot of the colonized thinking and westernized thinking as it pertained to religion and all those different things because of what I saw with my own eyes. The other thing I had to realize is that many of the people who had been teaching me in America hadn't even been over here. And so all they were doing is reading somebody else's book, reading somebody else's interpretation, reading somebody else's this, that, and the other. And so they're just taking that and now peddling that to me and asking me to give money. And they haven't even done their own due diligence to come see for themselves. Because if they had, and they came over here and they didn't ask more questions by the time they left, then either they were dumb or dead, one of the two. You know, if you come over here and you're really sincere about learning and studying to show yourself approved and all those things that we've been taught to do, and you don't leave here with more questions, then you're either dumb or dead, one of the two. That's my opinion. So, you know, I went to Lalibela. I saw what I saw there. It's beautiful. I love Ethiopia, one of my favorite countries. I go to Kenya. I see what all happened in Kenya. I see what happened in Tanzania. I went down to South Africa and understood what happened in South Africa with the Dutch and the British and the Germans and that whole deal. I come back over to the West. I get my dual citizenship in Sierra Leone. Understood what happened in Sierra Leone. I'm learning about basically how the British operate. You know, they see something, they go get it. How the French operate, they see something, they go get it. But the way we see them in our world, they taught us in their school systems. They put us in their education system and said we're educated based upon it. I'm watching all these black folks swinging off the jocks of these white institutions and saying, this is what makes you educated. You go to this school, you're educated. And they downplay everything about themselves. They don't even realize all the different things about themselves that's great, that's powerful. Because, and now it's clicking and saying, well, we've been trained to want to aspire to be like them. I'm going to the different churches and stuff, and I see the little pastors up there. All they're doing, instead of creating their own brand, they want to go and run after the white brands. I ain't gonna call names out, but y'all know them brands that everybody's chasing after. But they have the ability to create this stuff themselves. But instead, they put all of that on a pedestal. So psychologically, you have people walking around subconsciously putting themselves down. Now, not even, it's like, it's like when you've been from childhood, from first grade, And somebody comes along and they put you in a school system and they say, well, the way that we measure your intelligence is based upon grades. We're giving you information that prepares you to do what we want you to do, but we're not really fully educating you. And so then you have parents who subscribe to that same system and they don't really educate their children the way that they need to because they don't know themselves. And this is what I realized. There were things I didn't know to teach my children. Now that I know better, they're grown now, but now that I know, I'm like, well, wow. So that's why I said I have to bring people. I have to have people, or at least create the opportunity for people to see for themselves. And that's why we have 4 children on this tour under the age of 10. We have a 12-year-old. On the last tour, we had 9 children. We have from ages 3 to 93 people coming on these tours. The last tour in Ghana, we had 90-year-old, 82-year-old. Last tour here in Egypt, 93-year-old. And when I was sitting down talking to Freddie Taylor's father, he said, Jay, he's 93 years old. He said, I'm 93, and he said, I'm still learning. And you could tell he was in amazement of what he was learning. And I think about all the people, all the self-proclaimed theologians who think they know something but ain't been nowhere. I think about all the people who got all these degrees and letters behind their names but ain't been nowhere. And they've been reading books from somebody else's interpretation, and that's it. But I'm telling you that when you come out here and you stand in spaces like this, and you can see things and ask yourself questions like, why is there Greco-Roman architecture? I'm going to talk right over my shoulder. Why is there Greco-Roman architecture in a temple, an Egyptian, or a temple that's in Egypt? Well, you begin to learn and you begin to ask those questions. And how did Egyptian hieroglyphics end up in a Greco-Roman temple? What was happening here? How did they find this? What does this mean over here? I'm just walking y'all through this. I'm giving y'all I don't have any notes or anything, but what do these things mean? There's the crocodile right there. What does that mean? And then here's the deal for like the church people. They'll say, oh no, that's demonic and that's of the devil, and and that's you don't want to learn about that, and that's the eye of such and such, and that's so on and so on. And then I always ask them, so who told you that? Well, my bishop told me that. Well, who told your bishop? Well, bishop told him that. And who told him that? And who interpreted that for him? And see, when you start asking questions about who was interpreting it, who was breaking this stuff down, now you come back and say, well, wait a minute. Who told me this? And why did they tell me this? Because at every turn you realize that if somebody's controlling the narrative, they want to keep you away from information that might actually liberate you. Let me say this, they might be telling you the truth. But at least if you know and you can dissect the information for yourself, you can come back and say, well, okay, I understand what this means. But if you talk to the average person, going into the average religious setting, into the average church, they don't know, all they know is what somebody told them. And they go with that Wednesday, Sunday, Saturday, whatever it is, year after year after year. Same thing when it comes to education, first grade, second grade, third grade. Half the school system just push people through. Don't really educate them, don't prepare them for the world, don't prepare them to understand how to think and how to interpret and how to process information. And they say, just take my word for it. Because the average teacher doesn't want to be challenged. The average person doesn't want to be challenged. The average person doesn't want somebody to question what they're teaching. They just take my word for it and don't question me. And once I got past that, that's when the confidence came to say, I can do whatever I need to be able to do with this life and this breath that God gave me. And if anything, it's strengthening my relationship with God, because now I don't have the filters of all these people's interpretations. People discouraging you from doing this and discouraging you from doing that. Well, if it's all bad like that, then I need to come learn and figure out why it's all bad like that. I need to understand it. Oh, no, you don't need to, no. And then you discover that half of the stuff that they're teaching you and telling you, that's the stuff that's off. And the stuff that you need to be figuring out, or at least getting deeper into understanding. I'm not saying, let me say this, let me be very, very clear. I'm not telling anybody what to follow, what not to follow. What I'm saying is get understanding. In all you're doing, get understanding. Because there's so many people walking around that are doing this robotic thing and they don't have understanding. And the minute they try to get understanding, they get ridiculed, they get criticized, they get all this other kind of stuff. And if you don't have a pair big enough to stand up to these folks, they'll crush you. I'm telling you, they will crush you if you let them. But don't let these jokers get out here and crush you. That's why you come see for yourself. So when you go back and you tell a story, say, man, you sound ignorant, man. And then they're looking crazy. And I'm not saying you don't have to always be polite. One thing that I've learned about being over here on the continent is that you don't have to always be polite. Because sometimes being too polite, you get run over. And sometimes you have to be able to stand up and say, well, nah, well, come on, put your money down and let's go on over there and do this thing. And see, that's called to put up or shut up. A lot of people are not willing to do that because it's easier to sit in a room with a microphone and shoot off something. People just, it's easier to do that than to get on a plane and go see and discover that maybe what you thought was wrong. Maybe how you've been thinking your whole life might have been off. And some people are content with that, but I wasn't content with that. And so I share all of this because I just want for people who have the courage and the desire to be able to understand that there's more to life than what's going on in America. There's more to life than what's going on in the UK. There's more to the shout out to London. That's my number 2 most viewed audience. There's more to life that's going on in Canada. There's more to life that's going on in France. There's more to life, y'all. And I just hope to see where people can really understand that God gave you a brain to use. And you can use that brain. And you don't have to have anybody else to think for you. You don't have to have anybody else to interpret for you. And if somebody does interpret for you, go check behind them and check behind that person and keep digging. And as you're doing your own soul due diligence and spiritual due diligence, you'll be amazed at the things that you learn. But let's come off of that for a second. The exposure when you do this, your level of conversation goes to the next level. You talk differently, you walk differently, you can inspire people differently. And that's what I see happening. We had a group come in early October. They came last year to Ghana. It was 4 of them. This time they came with 9. Now we have people talking about bringing back the whole family, relatives and cousins and children, because they know that people need this experience. We have to understand that the U.S. government, the Canadian government, the British government, the French government, the Belgian government, the Dutch government, they're not going to come and educate us. They would love to put us in student loan debt and give us a piece of paper to give us a little job to keep a little something going on. But as far as us getting out here and seeing the world and breathing this air and having leisure and education and entertainment and fun all wrapped into one, outside of Disney World and outside of Carowinds and outside of, name someplace, name some amusement park. Outside of that, see, that's the thing, that's the greatest threat right there, when people's minds get liberated. When your mind gets set free, that's the threat. As long as your mind is in a box, and as long as you're on the peanut gallery and following what the peanut gallery says to do, it'll be robotic and you'll struggle. You'll struggle your whole life. You'll struggle because the exposure is limited. And it takes a certain mindset to say, I gotta do more. And stop overthinking the money. People overthink the money. We waste so much money on foolishness, wasted on foolishness, and then when it comes time to do something for ourselves and improve ourselves and better ourselves, now we gotta wrestle with it. And that tells you how that thing, in the religious terms, they call it a stronghold. How that stuff gets in your mind, and now you're like, I don't know. If it's amusement, no problem. I'm going to Hawaii. I'm going to, y'all give me someplace. I'm going to this place. But you talk about going someplace where you can do all of what you do in Hawaii and learn something and go back and help liberate your family. And I'm telling you, if you're waiting on politicians to liberate your family, it's not going to happen. If you're waiting on a preacher to liberate your family, it's not going to happen. It's going to be up to you going to get the information for yourself, you being the Moses for your family. Because if you're waiting for somebody else to come do it, it's not going to happen. It hasn't happened in all these years. And I'm saying that for families who've had people to do it. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking about to the people who have had families and generations and everything. And they see how people are stuck. Our young boys out there trying to fumble along, trying to figure out how to make it happen in America. And they just need some exposure, that's all. we buy them $300 and $400 tennis shoes and whine and complain about taking them somewhere outside of the country. Take them outside so their mind can get up off the block. Take them somewhere, take these girls somewhere where their mind can get up off the block. That's what I'm saying. Get their minds up off the block, because the block is there. The block has been designed to make sure that's where they stay. And even if they get off the block, a lot of times their mindset's still on the block. And I'm looking at this brother Ray Sean. He here today, 22 years old. I did an interview with him on the channel. Check it out. He here. He like, man, I'm learning some things. He's at a critical time in his life where he can see this, that, and the other, and put other pieces of the puzzle together where he might even relocate and experience different cultures and see different things. But again, what I know is this: can't nobody gaslight me. Can't nobody tell me, Jay, you don't know what you're talking about. Can't nobody come and say what I experience isn't what I experience. And I had to do that for myself. So I'm preaching to the choir of people who are saying that you are willing to do this for yourself. Maybe your countries are completely different. Maybe you're supposed to go to Central African Republic. Maybe you're supposed to go to Brazil. I haven't been down to Brazil. we're going to Colombia. I've been to the islands in Jamaica and all of that. Love Jamaica. Shout out to all my Jamaican brothers and sisters and all my Bahia Brazilian brothers and sisters. And down in Haiti and some of the other places. I've been down in the Caribbean. But I'm just saying, as far as when it comes to this continent, it's just like any place else. If you don't go certain places, then certain things don't come your way. If you go hang out in the wrong places, then certain things are gonna come your way. You're not gonna catch me hanging out in certain parts of DC. You're not gonna catch me hanging out in certain parts of Chicago, because I understand. So don't lose your hood sense. You come over, have a great time. If you want to get plugged into what we're doing, hit up MaximumImpactTravel.com. I got a documentary about to drop about Tanzania. Got one about to drop about Egypt. I'm going to shoot another one in Ghana and really talk about what we're doing in Ghana and how it's a partnership in Ghana, and how, when I say, I'm talking about the people of Ghana. I'm not talking about the government of Ghana. I'm talking about the people. And how we've bridged the gap there. And when you come as a part of these experiences, again, you become a part of a family, you become a part of a culture, you become a part of people, a particular mindset of people who are willing to explore. And this is just the beginning. God willing, that things, continue to go as they've gone. And it's just amazing. We're going to put all of this into the children's resources. The Adventures of Darren and Destiny, the children's books. If you want to, you can get those on Amazon or go to DarrenandDestiny.com. We're going to be introducing the Maximum Impact Success Academy, June 2023, and that's going to have all kinds of resources. And we're taking the proceeds that we get from the travel and putting it into the academy. So for those who might not be able to travel just yet, they'll have the resources. And this is outside of the YouTube platform, because YouTube could switch up and say anything, say I said something wrong, and just take the channel away. They could just do all kinds of things. I watched several people deal with that. But we'll put the academy out there. It'll be very affordable for people to be a part of the monthly subscription. And our goal is, within 5 years, to have 10,000 subscribers on the academy. And this is everything from family, structure, how do you prepare your family for success, young people, how to raise them for success, going to college without debt. I can go down a whole list of things. I'm not gonna give you the whole curriculum right now, but it'll be a resource that's needed. And of course, bringing people to the continent, taking people to South America and seeing all of the African population in Brazil and Colombia, helping them connect with a lot of the Black history that's already in America, dispelling the myths, breaking down the misinformation and disinformation, introducing you to other people who share the same commitment to liberating the mind. And once you get the mind liberated, everything else will follow. What's that? Didn't En Vogue say that back in the day? Free your mind and the rest will follow. But that's what we're doing, and you all are welcome to be a part of it. That's the bottom line. So I know I haven't been live. I'm doing more and more lives now because I'm recognizing the importance of it. But if you share this, and it's important to share these interviews that we're putting out here, you're hearing other people's perspectives, you're hearing what they have to say. When we drop new videos, when you subscribe and you get the notifications, and check, if you've been subscribing, you're not getting notifications, do it again, because sometimes YouTube plays games. They just do. That's just the way it is. They're owned by the very entities that are designed to suppress information. So we got to be intentional about dealing with that and navigating around information suppression. That's just the way it is. That's the time. You start getting too many people waking up, then that poses a problem to the economic factor. So you just got to understand the way the game works. And we'll talk about all of that in the Academy. Also, make sure that you check out Urban Intellectuals and Freddie Taylor and what they're doing. Get the Black History flashcards, and they're one of our travel partners. If maybe you want to bring a group over, maybe you have a church group you want to bring over, or a fraternity or sorority you want to bring over, or just a family. So you got 30 people in your family you want to bring them over. We have an affiliate program where we're going to be rolling that out and introducing, so you can make money from that if you like. So if you bring a certain amount of people, you can get you can partake in that side of it. So it's a lot. We want everybody to win, and this is how we do it. So right now I'm in Kamumbo in Egypt, and we got a group here. They're inside the temple right now. But all I want to say is my life was boring until I changed it. And if you don't change it, then it's going to keep going. I'll also be having details coming about the whole Reboot Your Life retreat in 2024. For people who want to understand, because I rebooted my whole life. Let me say this. I rebooted the whole life. Reboot. Like, you know how when the phone or the things start acting up and it's locking up and all that kind of stuff, and you got to hit Control Alt Delete. That's old school, right? Or you just got to hit restart. Well, that's exactly what I did. And other people want to be able, trying to figure out how I was able to go about doing it and the steps that it takes. And so we're going to have that retreat for you. And like I said, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be in Tanzania. That's what we're leaning towards. Tanzania. Some people say Tanzania. But that's what we're leaning towards. Out in Zanzibar. So probably some Dar es Salaam in there. It'll be at least 10 days. So it's going to be serious. We're going to give you some time to get away, give you some time to unwind, and really put some things together. And we're looking at January 2024. So, like I said, 9 times out of 10 Tanzania. If it's not Tanzania, it'll be South Africa. One of the two. And we're going to cover a variety of different topics. We're going to talk about health and wellness. We're going to talk about mental health and wellness. But then I'm going to give you strategies on exactly what I do and how I'm able to live comfortably in the reboot. Because, when you reboot, sometimes you got to start back up and all of that. And we're going to talk about that. And it's open to anyone who's interested. Obviously, if you sign up, we'll do a discovery call with you just to make sure it's a good fit. Because sometimes, everything isn't for everybody. So I'd like to make sure it's a good fit for that particular retreat. But I can tell you that if you take the wisdom and insight that we'll share, and again, if you just look at my channel and see all of what's transpired over the past couple of years, you can just watch and see. So something had to happen for me to be able to be doing what I'm doing in all these different countries, dual citizen, all of this, and bringing people at the same time. So that might not be your thing, but I'm just saying, as far as whatever it is in your life, you're raising children, you've raised the children, maybe you're just getting started in life, maybe you're one of our elders and you're saying, hey, I've raised my children, my grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren. Now it's time for me to do something for me. I'm 75 and I'm ready to reboot my life. I'm 18 and I'm ready to reboot my life. Some people lived a whole lot of life by the time they get 18, and they're ready to make some changes. So we'll talk more about that. Stay tuned for it. If you're in Accra, Ghana, December 18th, I got that big golden birthday celebration coming up. That's right, the golden one. That's right, it's coming up. So I have details about that. Anyway, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, send this out for the person who's out there who maybe just trying to put it together. Stop thinking about it. If you want to come on one of these trips, put your deposit down. The deposit is low. Put it down. 2023, 2024, whatever you need to do. Come on and be a part of the experience. We would love to see you. We would love for you to be a part of what we're doing. We offer 10 different countries all throughout the continent of Africa. Everything from Ghana, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, the Gambia, Togo, Benin, Egypt, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Kenya, Seychelles, South Africa. Throw Lesotho in there. I'm about to add Morocco to the mix. So all of that is a part of the Maximum Impact travel experience. But it's not just about travel, it's about liberating the mind and just taking us to another level outside of what has been prescribed. So anyway, subscribe, like, share, talk to you real soon, and spread the word.